Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's One Leeds, it is Connor. We are here with the sweatshirts. Go check them out in the link in the description below. They are brand new on the merchandise website. We've got sweatshirts, we've got hoodies, we've got t-shirts, we've got mugs, all that good stuff. So go check that link out in the description below as well. With PayPal, any donations, guys, all the donations so far have been amazing. They go straight back into the channel. And Patreon, if you want a little bit of bonus content, you can get it all over there. We've got a new episode coming this weekend, which I think you guys on the Patreon will really like. The Patreon numbers are growing as well, so thank you so much for that support. And today what I wanted to do was, I told you I'm going to keep on with the grind. I told you that it's going to continue. And it's continuing today with a brand new series that I'm bringing to the channel called The Tactical Breakdown. So yeah, I guess the first thing to touch on is when we're doing the tactical breakdown, it's going to be where Leeds can hurt the opposition. So what I want to do initially is look at the opposition. So we're going to look at Wolverhampton Wanderers today. Now, what I've noticed about Wolves and what we've seen with Wolves this season, last season, and under Nuno generally, is them deploying two specific formations. We've got the 3-4-1-2 and we've got the 3-4-3. Now, like Leeds use the 4-1-4-1, Nuno likes to deploy the 3-4-3 more than often. They used it 21 times this last season in comparison to the 3-4-1-2 formation, which last year they used 14 times. And it's really interesting where he uses this. And this is where it's going to be such an amazing tactical battle once again between Bielsa and another manager. We've had it with Wilder, we've had it with Pep, and Nuno's going to be no different. Now, the reason that he uses these two formations is because he's got different strategies. When an opposition team is very high pressing, when they're deploying that press again towards Wolves, what he likes to do is he likes the defence, he likes Cody, he likes Bolly to hit the front man, to hit Jimenez. So then Jimenez can peel off, set Adama in, set Neto in. And that's normally how Wolves work against the high pressing teams. So it's going to be really interesting to see if he does that against the high pressing Leeds United. The sort of alternative formation that he uses, and he uses it more often, is the 3-4-3. The reason Wolves use this is when they just want to dominate possession, when they want to dominate centrally, and that's when Neves and Moutinho get a lot of the ball. Now, when they played Manchester City, we saw the utilisation of the 3-4-1-2 formation. As I've said before, this was because of the high press. We saw it against Leeds United. Man City's high press can be absolutely devastating, and it's complete quality as well. Their high press is very, very good, and it works to good effect. It always has done in Pep's managerial career. So we saw Wolves go for the long ball, but we did see them get elements of success. Jimenez, extremely good at holding the ball up, extremely good in the air as well, and that only benefits Adama Traore and Neto cutting in as sort of inside forwards. Now, we've seen this adaptation with Leeds United as well in terms of going for that long ball. You know, we saw it especially against City. I think that's where we started gaining a lot of joy after the 20-minute mark. Calvin started slipping between the centre-back and the left-back, or the centre-back and the right-back, getting the ball, enabling the full-backs to go straight forward and giving us more offensive outlets, and starts to ping the ball. And it's very, very interesting to see that Leeds have started doing this more and more this year, because you can't simply play out from the back in the Premier League, because the quality is way too good. And, you know, we can against certain teams, but against the top teams, you can't be playing out from the back, because the opposition team is just going to use that high press, and they're going to catch you out. And we saw that multiple times against Manchester City. This new tactic that Leeds have started doing by hitting Bamford very early, it's something that I like. It's what you see the top teams doing as well. We see that with Liverpool all the time. Van Dijk being one of the best distributors of the ball. I think what we like to do with Leeds is Calvin likes to get into that role and spray the balls to Harrison and Costa. Now, Wolves are an extremely similar side to Leeds in how they play, and it wasn't until I was doing the research that I started gaining this sort of knowledge about them. It's the dynamic flow of their play. It's so fluid, but they play out wide. You know, 45% of their possession is on the right-hand side, and that's where we saw the emergence last year of Doherty. You know, Doherty, a wonderful player, moved on to Spurs, and the reason behind that is because of his goals, his assists, and he reminds me so much of Luke Ayling in the fact that he gets the ball in his defensive third, moves up the phases, moves up the transitions, and pulls Wolves in from a defensive outlet into an offensive outlet very, very quickly. Doherty does. Now, him leaving has left a big hole. I think he's a very, very good player. Got so many assists for Wolves as well. But this is where new players have to come and emerge. We've got Semedo's come in from Portugal, and he looks like a real player, and he's just going to fit into that mould, fit into that Nuno mould. He's athletic, he's versatile once again, and I think that he's going to be a really good player for Wolves. But there is a massive resemblance with Wolves and Leeds by how much we utilise the width. And, you know, I think Wolves were central. The creation of chances was the second bottom in the league last year. It was very low because everything goes out wide. Everything's dynamic, very similarly to Leeds United. They utilised Johnny last season. They utilised Doherty. Obviously, that's had to be adapted this season, but it's so similar to what we see from Stuart Dallas and Luke Ayling. And what we see a lot in the 3-4-3 formation for Wolves as well is this: when they're trying to get possession in the midfield and they're trying to control the game, you see a lot from Ruben Neves, like we see from Calvin Phillips. We saw it in the Championship as well. A lot of people describe him as box-to-box, but for Nuno, him and Moutinho sort of act as a double pivot, and Moutinho actually gets forward a lot more, but you rarely see them really, when they're building play, go past that halfway line, because what Wolves do is they rely on their attacking players going forward. And Nuno doesn't feel that Neves needs to contribute in terms of getting forward that much, or Moutinho. Moutinho is the one who breaks the lines, but on a whole, it is just left to the wingers, and it's left to Jimenez. We've seen the emergence of Pedence a lot this year, you know, when we've seen Jota move on at Wolves, and what him and Neto do is they pull the defenders out wide. They stretch the play in this 3-4-3 formation, enabling Jimenez to come in and really try to boss the centre-backs in the middle. And what I do like about the double pivot as well, and sometimes I sort of wish we had this to our play, they've got two world-class players in Neves and Moutinho, and the double pivot, it sort of enables them not to be counter-attacked so ruthlessly. And that is what enables that structure, that defensive structure, to be maintained when the opposition are coming at Wolves on the counter. Now, this is a really interesting point with regards to Leeds United, because obviously we are ferocious on the counter-attack. Now, are Wolves going to be able to sustain that counter-attack, dropping into a back five and having those two in the double pivot? You've got to notice as well, guys, and who we haven't touched on right yet is Traore. Now, this guy is a monster. He's the best dribbler for me in the Premier League, and that's backed up by his stats last year. He had the most dribbles in the Premier League. He is a terrifying winger. I remember when he played for Middlesbrough and tore us apart in our old regime, which, I mean, wasn't difficult, but his pace is frightening. And I think in a one-on-one scenario, we're going to have to concede that he's going to murder our fullbacks at points in this game. And his assist to goal ratio is the top in the league. Him and Jimenez have the best bond in the division, which is mad when you think of players, you know, like maybe Bruno Fernandes and Rashford, or De Bruyne and Jesus. But no, Traore and Jimenez are the top of the pack, and this is extremely dangerous because Traore is going to be very difficult to stop. Similarly to Leeds, actually, we see a lot of progression down our right-hand side. I think you see a lot more of Luke Ayling going forward than you do Stuart Dallas. I think Leeds play on that right-hand side a lot more, and that's backed up by statistics. Wolves do the exact same. They try to get Traore on the ball consistently, and that three at the back, Willy Bolly's on the right-hand side of the three. You've got Semedo, who pushes up on the right-hand side of the four, and then you've got Traore. You've just got pure pace on that right-hand side, and Wolves really are going to be difficult to stop in that sense. And I think in the system, very similarly to Leeds as well, they're very confident ball carriers, so the fullbacks push up. We saw that last season, as I keep mentioning, with Doherty, but obviously Semedo coming in now, Johnny there as well on that left-hand side. They're very confident ball carriers, which just essentially pushes Wolves up the pitch, and this is why it's going to be a really interesting game, because Leeds are going to do the exact same. Now, when we're talking about Adama Traore, and with him, in a sense, it is just an out-and-out winger, someone who is just ruthless, who will continue to take on that fullback, you know, minute in, minute out, and he's going to cause Stuart Dallas a lot of problems, and it's going to have to be one of Dallas's best games because Traore is a monster. But it's really interesting on that other side, you know, with the utilisation of Pedence and Neto, you know, interchanging maybe, or it's going to be one or the other, who knows how Wolves will set up. But if they do set up in the 3-4-3 and it's one of those, what they normally do, they normally act as inside forwards and they come inside. You saw it a lot with Diogo Jota, in the Wolves side. He would cut inside and take a strike, or if he was going to cut inside, he'd play Jimenez in, and a lot of the ball carrying, a lot of the chances created were from the overlap from Johnny. So you get a lot of chances created by Johnny on that left-hand side and Traore on the right. Johnny would sort of act as a winger. And that's very similar to what we see at Leeds United with someone like Jack Harrison. You'll get Stuart Dallas on the overlap, or on the other side, you'll get Costa acting as an inside forwards, cutting inside, linking up with Bamford, maybe a couple of 1-2s, and then you'll get Ayling on the overload. The difference between Leeds and Wolves in that sense is Leeds sort of have two inside forwards, really, in Costa and Harrison, whereas Wolves just have the one, and they use Adama as an out-and-out force winger. Now listen, we're all talking about Wolves with this 3-4-3 formation. They probably use it as much as Leeds use the 4-1-4-1. It really is a base foundation formation that they use. But it could be quite interesting to see whether or not they deploy the 3-4-1-2, which they have utilised a lot. As I said, they have used it this season against the high pressing side, which Leeds are. And where they use this extremely effectively is they hit Jimenez, and Jimenez is extremely good in the air. He's extremely good at coming forward, receiving the ball, maybe getting a free kick, or what he does extremely well is the centre-back will follow Jimenez as he's got his back to goal. Jimenez will go, receive the ball, and then he's very good at getting the ball out of his feet quickly and switching the ball in and behind to Adama Traore. Or what he does extremely well, and what him and Diogo Jota did extremely well, was that he would knock the ball on, Jota would get onto it consistently, and it seems like Neto and Jimenez are gaining this understanding recently. And one of Wolves' massive advantages as well is they are good defensively. We've seen them concede quite a few goals this year, but overall they are very good. And how they deal with teams on the overlap, which we don't see a lot of like Leeds, but how they deal with it is they've got some huge centre-backs. Now, when they're defending, they drop into a back five, but they're centre-halves. You know, you've got Saiz, you've got Cody, and you've got Bolly, who've worked together for years and years and years. Very similar to Leeds' fabric, how long that back line have worked together, but they're very good aerially. You know, Wolves don't concede a lot from corners, and they're very good offensively at set pieces. So when we're utilising that overlap, the balls for me have to be drilled in, and we have to cause them problems on the floor. When Wolves drop into a back five, this is when it's extremely dangerous, because they're in this pattern very well. You know, they drop into a back five when they're defending. Leeds sort of drop as well when we're defending into a real standardised set back 4-1-4-1 formation with Bamford almost on the halfway line. But what Wolves do is they set traps. So when they go into that back five, they can counteract other teams' counter-attacks with the double pivot. But what they're extremely good at is breaking out of that back five, breaking out at extreme pace with the fullbacks and with that weapon that is Adama Traore. If we do see Wolves utilise the 3-4-3 formation, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Bielsa does with Leeds. Now, what we've seen against Sheffield United and against Manchester City is Dallas sort of tuck into the midfield when Leeds have been overcrowded. What does that mean? It means we're going to get a man extra in the middle. It means someone like Cooper or Struijk is going to have to veer over to the left to replace Dallas, and we're going to go to sort of like a back three at times in the game situation, and Dallas is going to help Leeds overload that middle. In a lot of utilisation of Luke Ayling in that tucking in role as well, and then you'll just see the opposite happen. You know, we'll see Robin Koch, for example, go into that right back mould, and Leeds will go back into a three again, and Calvin may tuck in centrally just amidst that back line. And we do see that a lot. We sort of see Dallas and Ayling coming in centrally. Now, passes per game, Ayling's actually been our most accurate player, and with Ayling tucking in, that gives us a massive advantage because he has actually been our most accurate passer this year according to stats. So that's going to help us in the midfield. We're overloading again, but once again, we've just got to be wary if we are coming forward of that Wolves counter-attack, because it is ever present. And once again, what we've got to bear in mind continuously, as I just mentioned with the counter-attack, if you're getting Ayling, if you're getting Dallas bombing on forward, who's going to be marking Neto or Podence? Who's going to be aware of Adama Traore? Because if Adama Traore gets free and Dallas is pushing himself that far up, he ain't going to be able to catch him. So it's going to be really interesting to see how much Leeds are going to push forward in this game. I still think we will, because that's what Leeds are like. That's what Bielsa's like. But for me, that's going to also work into Wolves' hands, like it will in the opposite way as well, and that's why it's so intriguing. What we saw with KP as well was when he was dropping between the centre-backs, he started getting a lot more room against Manchester City, and he was able to utilise his passing, which for Leeds is massive. Now, once again, if Wolves are pushing up and KP's got the ball, he can utilise that switch, and he always does it extremely well. And what he does as well is if he's occupying that centre-back role, you'll get Struijk, who I presume is going to come in this weekend, pushed out onto the left side. You'll get Robin, who pushes out, and it almost forms a back three when Calvin's got the ball. As I've said before, that means that Leeds can push forward and we've got more variation in our play. Now, as I've said before, guys, and to sort of end this video, I think Luke Ayling's going to be key in this game. His overloads on that right-hand side are going to be pivotal to what Leeds do. The deliveries have to be perfect, and I think he's going to have to help out in the midfield. That's going to make Leeds go to a back three at points as well. And I think with Luke Ayling, his passing's got to be absolutely spot on. He can really help us in that midfield if Wolves are dominating possession, which they could well do with the likes of Neves and Moutinho. It's probably less likely because Leeds at home are extremely good at keeping possession, keeping hold of the ball, retaining possession. But it's going to be a really interesting tactical battle for me, but Luke Ayling is the key man there for me. The high press is key for both teams in this, but I don't think Wolves utilise it as much as we do. I still don't think we're fully into our high press mode, which we're in last year. I think the team in that sense still look a little bit fatigued, and I still think they're getting to that point of that full high press. But this is a game where we could really deploy it. I don't think you see Wolves doing that high press as much because Neves and Moutinho don't really pass that halfway line for me. They just act as a double defensive pivot quite a lot of the time. So it's going to be fascinating to see if we win the ball and recover the ball in the attacking third, what we can then do with it. But I think the key facet of this game is going to be Leeds' high press, and if we can win the ball over, because if we are pressing that high and we don't win the ball over, we're in big trouble at the back. So yeah, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this tactical breakdown. I'm not going to give you my predicted score or anything like that. That's going to be out on my preview. We'll have your opposition preview out as well. Please, if you've enjoyed this, it's been a little bit different, slap a like on the video and make sure you cop some merch. Check out the Patreon and the PayPal, of course, and I'll see you in a bit.